Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Undocumented immigrants throughout the country are terrified of what Donald Trump's calls for mass deportations means for them. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It's part of his plans for day one. When he returns to the White House, Trump can direct his administration to begin the deportation effort the minute that he arrives in office. But it would require a huge trained law enforcement force, detention facilities, and nations willing to accept deportees. Our media partner KGTV asked a local immigration attorney how the administration would locate undocumented migrants.
I think what's really scary is the fact that they may potentially have people reporting other people in retaliation, right? You're kind of already seeing some of the rhetoric online of, I'm going to contact ICE because my neighbor is, I think, undocumented. Being a sanctuary state, there should be no collaboration by the local law enforcement with ICE. The law enforcement agencies in California can't preemptively say, here's a list of people that we had arrested or stopped on a traffic stop that we don't think have documentation.
All of the uncertainty is having a real impact on people's lives. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis spoke with a therapist about how immigrant populations are dealing with the stress.
I spoke with Muriel Casamayor. She's a licensed therapist here in Southern California and knows exactly what undocumented people are going through right now because she was undocumented. Here she is talking about some of the conversations she's had since the election.
Letting them know that, yes, right now, it's okay to feel rage. It's okay to feel fear. It's okay to feel anxious. It's okay not wanting to go to school for the day or maybe taking some time off from work, you know, because we're humans.
Now, we know that undocumented immigrants already have higher rates of stress and anxiety because of their lack of legal status. Casamayor says that it's very important for people to find healthy ways of processing those feelings. She told me that undocumented people need to understand that they're not alone. There are groups and organizations out there offering help and support.
Allow yourself to, in a safe space, you know, to express and how you're feeling and process that in community, because that's what we have at the end of the day, our community to lean on.
One of those organizations is Immigrants Rising. Casamayor says that they connect undocumented college students with therapists with lived experience who know exactly what they're going through. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
California's Democratic-controlled government is vowing to fight back against the Trump administration's policies. Coming up, hear from the state attorney general, who's leading the charge.
Well, tonight we're cooling down to temperatures in the 40s, but not dealing with the increased wind or increased fire threat that we saw last night. I'll tell you what to expect for the rest of the week ahead coming up.
10 years ago, San Diego adopted a goal of 0 traffic deaths and serious injuries by the year 2025. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says a new report digs into why the city failed to achieve Vision Zero.
Traffic deaths on San Diego streets are more common today than they were in 2015. Vision Zero at 10 years. A new report from think tank Circulate San Diego offers a few explanations. For one, vehicles have gotten larger, meaning crashes are more likely to kill pedestrians rather than injure them. Will Moore, the report's author, says the city has more pedestrian safety projects in the pipeline, but they're not getting built fast enough.
So while the city of San Diego has done a good job in improving its plans, it has to do substantially more to implement those plans more cheaply, more quickly, and with more resources.
Michelle Gonzalez is a volunteer with Families for Safe Streets San Diego. She joined the group after her sister, Andrea, was killed while biking in Philadelphia last year.
She got hit right in front of school, which speaks to the poor infrastructure and safety and traffic controls in front of a school, which is just terrible.
Gonzalez says her sister was a fierce advocate for the dignity of pedestrians and cyclists.
After her death, I took it on me to continue her work and try to not subtract any more members of our community.
The report also recommends San Diego consider automated traffic enforcement, such as speed cameras, to curb an increase in reckless driving. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Starting next year, property owners of abandoned commercial buildings in Escondido must pay an annual hefty fee. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen says it's an attempt to curb the city's growing number of vacant storefronts.
Up and down Grand Avenue in downtown Escondido, in between vibrant shops, cafes, and restaurants, are these eyesores. Where shop used to be, now sit empty storefronts with broken glass and homeless encampments.
You know, some of these owners just really don't seem to care about their property at all.
Rising rents, operating costs, and a lack of incentives for owners to find new tenants are leaving more of these empty storefronts than the city would like. Greer Bohan owns Ginger Road Wellness and Spa and has been in this location for 10 years. She's also seen some storefronts sitting empty just as long.
We need a vibrant downtown here in Escondido for our own businesses and for our community. And just having places empty for no reason is not conducive to business at all.
The city began working on an ordinance to charge a fee for abandoned buildings 2 years ago when it noticed an uptick in business closures, especially on Grand Avenue. As you can see, this closed storefront is dirty, unkept, and you can see how empty it is inside. And it's right next to a neighborhood cafe. The city council passed the ordinance last month. The city will charge a fee of nearly $4,500 a year for abandoned commercial buildings. According to city staff, Escondido is the first city in the county to charge such a fee.
I'm all for it, 100%.
Escondido Mayor Dane White says this is part of the city's plan to revitalize the area.
We have a lot of the larger properties that have been vacant, some for decades. And what happens is some of these people are out of town. They really don't have any interest in making Escondido better, making our downtown better.
Come the new year, owners of abandoned buildings will need to display their contact information on the property. They will also need to describe how they would secure the property from break-ins and any future plans for the building. They must also update the city on any changes to those plans. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
San Diego is considering a reform to its building code to encourage more family-sized apartments. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more on the push for single-stair reform.
Most American cities require buildings above 3 stories to have at least 2 stairwells. The century-old rule was intended for fire safety, though critics say the advent of sprinkler systems has made the rule obsolete. City Council member Kent Lee wants San Diego to explore allowing taller single-stair buildings. He says that would give architects the flexibility to build apartments for families with young children.
Especially in dense environments, we have a lot of micro units, studios, 1-bedrooms. To get like a 2 or 3 bedroom unit within a building is actually much more challenging when you have limited ways in which you can configure those buildings.
At Lee's request, San Diego is adding single-stair reform to its list of priorities in Sacramento. The state legislature passed a law last year that commissioned a study on single-stair reform, though it does not mandate any changes to the building code. That's why Lee also hopes the city can get ahead of the state and incorporate single-stair reform into the local building code.
We have in other cases been on the forefront when it comes to housing policy, and this is one of those ways in which we can really look to meet the need that we have, which is, frankly, again, this challenge that we have in providing housing for a lot of families.
The Office of the State Fire Marshal must deliver its report on single-stair reform to the legislature by January 2026. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Congress returned to Washington today after an extended election recess, and Amy Kiley reports on the pressing deadlines before Inauguration Day.
That December 20th deadline is going to creep up very quickly.
Lawmakers face an urgent to-do list and a ticking clock. They have about 5 weeks to pass a funding bill to keep the government open.
Expect a clash because that's always what happens when we have these potential shutdowns. Republicans are likely going to push for a shorter-term funding patch, while Democrats are going to want a longer-term funding plan.
Another pressing concern is this fiscal year's National Defense Authorization Act. The House and Senate have separate versions on the table and need one that can pass both chambers. Congress also faces pressure to approve more disaster relief funds after Hurricanes Milton and Helene.
We have seen an increase in the frequency and gravity of extreme weather events, and it is our obligation as a government to be prepared for the long term. And that is why we need Congress to act.
Meanwhile, some farm bill programs expire at the end of this year. The debt ceiling will be reinstated January 2nd, and
President Biden will have the opportunity over the next 70 days to make the case to the Congress and to the incoming administration that the United States should not walk away from Ukraine.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
A teacher in Moreno Valley has been placed on administrative leave following a post-election rant. He was caught on an audio recording sharing his true feelings to students about President-elect Donald Trump. Joy Benedict reports.
I'm so sorry, guys. You deserve better. Look at me. You deserve better.
It's an audio recording catching many off guard, taken from a classroom inside this Moreno Valley High School the morning after the election, about Donald Trump.
Let me tell you, I know a lot of Latino men on this campus, adults and students, that love Donald Trump. And he's called their mothers rapists. He's called their fathers rapists. He's called them criminals. He called them the poison in the blood of our country.
He just kept talking about it. He was saying that Trump is racist, Trump is a rapist. What else? Treasonous.
Alec Colon was in his first period world history class that day.
I like him. He's a good teacher.
But he admits he went too far.
He shouldn't be talking to kids about politics.
A sentiment echoed by other students who have since heard the recording posted online.
My father always told me if you're going to say something, it's all about the tone and the way you deliver your message. And the way he did it was very unprofessional, it was very inappropriate for his students.
Noah Neary is also in 10th grade.
The way he was speaking his opinion to his students, it was as if he's pushing his agenda towards them, you know, and it wasn't right. That's not what you're supposed to do as a teacher.
The school district sent out a letter to parents saying, in part, we were recently made aware of an incident at one of our high schools in which a staff member's discussion about the election results turned unprofessional. It went on to say the teacher is now on administrative leave, and that has young people fighting back, starting a Change.org petition asking to bring him back and asking for equal punishment for all teachers, no matter their political background.
Is our country racist? Yes. Is our country patriarchal? Yes. Can we change it? Maybe.
His personal opinion to save it to himself.
As for what happens now, students we spoke with say they hope he does come back. They also hope he just tones it down.
I feel like he should learn his lesson for sure.
California is forewarning the incoming Trump administration that it has power too, and it plans to use it. That is, if the new president tries to block the state's progress on key issues. KPBS's Amita Sharma joins us to talk about the state attorney general's plans to push back, punch back with litigation and legislation. Welcome, Amitha.
Thank you, Maya.
So tell me about California versus Trump 1.0. How did the state fare in those clashes, and what were they over?
Well, Maya, you probably recall some of this. During the first Trump administration from 2017 through 2020, California and the first Trump White House fought in court 120 times. And California Attorney General Rob Bonta says the state won a super majority of those cases on issues that will surprise no one who is paying attention and that are expected to only surface again as flashpoints.
We still want climate action. We still want reproductive freedom. We still want common sense gun safety. We still want civil rights for all of our communities. We still want health care that's high quality and accessible. We still want housing. That hasn't changed. We still support our immigrants and compassionate, humane treatment of them. That doesn't change with one election.
Okay, well, Amitha, this begs the question, how much power does California really have to challenge the federal government? And doesn't federal law trump state law?
In some circumstances, yes. Bonta says the Constitution does not give one single person, in this case the President of the United States, all of the power. States also have vast power. California, as you know, has enshrined the right for a woman to have an abortion in its state constitution. Bonta says if Trump tries to institute a national abortion ban, the state is ready for a fight with, quote, strong defenses. Bonta says Trump also lacks the authority to trample on California's sanctuary law, which restricts the state's law enforcement agencies from enforcing federal immigration law. Bonta says future court fights with the federal government depend on Trump.
He has a very hard time resisting unlawful action. It's part of his brand. It's who he is. It's what he's done time and time again. So we are ready to bring lawsuits challenging his unlawful actions and seeking injunctions and court orders preventing him from continuing those unlawful actions, just as we did before. We also are preparing legislation to immunize California from any attempts by Trump to get in the way of our progress. We are going to continue moving forward. Progress will prevail if he tries to get in the way. We will push back, punch back, and fight back.
So what happens if these cases are appealed to the Supreme Court? Half of Americans view the High Court unfavorably.
I asked Attorney General Bonta just that, and he says he is clear-eyed on what could happen to California's cases.
We have to be realistic about the U.S. Supreme Court and what has happened to that court, and the fact that there are numerous appointees from the Trump administration 1.0 who raised their hand, took an oath, went before the Senate Judiciary Committee, committed to the precedent of Roe versus Wade, and committed to honoring it. And then the first time they had a chance to overrule it, they did.
And I should add, Maya, that California is not alone in its fight. It has allies in the western United States and across the country. And it has bookend support by attorneys general in New York and New Jersey. And one more point. California Governor Gavin Newsom also warned last week that if Trump attacks American values, the state will not stand idly by. So, Maya, it looks like California is ready to rumble with the federal government.
Ready to rumble. Well, thank you so much, Amitha. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And this story is part of our Public Matters project. It's a partnership with iNewsSource and Voice of San Diego. You can find more stories about politics and local government issues online at kpbs.org/Public Matters.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, Donald Trump makes his picks for top foreign policy positions. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Okay, so take a guess on how many decisions you made today, from the moment you wake up to the time your eyes close at night. One expert estimates that your brain makes upwards of 35,000 decisions every single day. Mandy Gaither has ways to help you defeat decision fatigue.
What to do for dinner? What to wear to work? Do you have time to go to the gym, or would it be better to take a brisk walk? All simple questions, but the weight of answering them each day can get heavy.
Decision fatigue is the mental exhaustion that individuals feel when they make multiple decisions over the course of the day.
Psychologist Susan Albers with Cleveland Clinic says it's a common problem for many adults and can be caused by stress, feeling overwhelmed, and lack of sleep. Since decision fatigue can build up over time, it can be tricky to spot. But she says there are warning signs, including procrastination, decision avoidance, impulsive decisions, irritability, brain fog, and confusion.
If you are a single parent or you carry the majority of the decisions at work, you may find yourself struggling more often with making these choices.
To help defeat decision fatigue, Albert says to create a routine to help know what to expect each day. Limit your options, like having some go-to meal ideas. Prioritize decisions. Albert says studies show we make our best decisions first thing in the morning. And delegate some decisions.
Children can decide what they want to wear in the morning, or a spouse can help us to decide what to make for dinner. This helps to lower the pressure and decrease some of the decisions that you have to make that are not that important.
For Health Minute, I'm Andy Gaither.
And Albers also adds that you're more likely to struggle with decision fatigue if you have a job which requires a lot of decisions to be made, or if you juggle multiple roles. She says to be aware of the warning signs as people become more vulnerable when they're under a lot of stress.
Well, the winds have died down that we saw yesterday heading into this morning. Temperatures are going to start to cool down as we head into the rest of the week. And I'll have an early look at your weekend in just a few minutes here. But first, let's take a look at what to expect for tonight. Temperatures ranging from the 30s to the 40s, 36 in Oceanside, 46 for San Diego, and 43 over for Borrego Springs. Tomorrow, we're seeing a little bit of a range of temperatures ranging from 75 in Oceanside and San Diego to 78 in Borrego Springs, 50s for Mount Laguna, and even 80s in some areas, including that 81 degrees for Ramona. But plenty of sunshine. That is the trend that we're seeing really throughout the rest of the week. So let's go ahead and take a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast here. 75 for your Wednesday, and this is the cool down that I was talking about. We're going to see temperatures cool by a few degrees each day by day. By Friday, we're in the mid 60s, but then by Sunday, we warm back up a little bit to that 69 degrees, seeing some clouds in and out throughout the week. Heading now to the further inland. Similar trend, we're seeing 82 for your Wednesday. By the weekend, we could see a few showers just on Saturday, 64 degrees there. Then we warm back up to the upper 60s. Taking a look at the mountains, 58 for your Wednesday. Then we cool down to the 30s. It's going to feel a little bit more like winter, and then we even back out into the mid 40s for your Sunday. And now your desert 5-day outlook, starting out with that 78 degrees for Wednesday. Plenty of sunshine, a few clouds filtering in as we head towards the weekend, cooling down to the upper 60s, and then just 1 degree warmer for Sunday with that 68 degrees, but plenty of sunshine without the clouds for your Sunday there. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
There's a special push this week to help veterans find what's next after serving our country. Maribel Gonzalez has more.
I'm Pat Montgomery, former member of 1st Ranger Battalion and owner and founder of Casey Cattle Company.
A world away from the battlefield, Patrick Montgomery found his next mission in a Missouri cattle field.
I am a huge believer that entrepreneurship is a great fit for the veteran community.
He launched a specialty beef company, but after a rave review from Food and Wine magazine, the company went from 20 orders a week to 12,000 in 24 hours.
You need funding to go make that growth happen.
Montgomery turned to the Small Business Administration's program for veterans to help build up his company.
That's where we come in. We help with the mentoring, we help with the training, and we stay with them.
The Federal Office of Advocacy's most recent numbers from the U.S. Census show more than 1.6 million veteran-owned businesses in the country, with nearly $1 trillion in annual sales, employing about 3.25 million people.
The American economy is driven by small businesses. So the more veterans and military spouses we can get into entrepreneurship, starting their business, is a big win for our economy.
30% of veteran-owned businesses employ fewer than 20 people. Casey Cattle Company has 12. Its website says, quote, the military taught them values they deliver to your plate. Patrick Montgomery says if he can do it, any veteran can.
In the world, but there's something out there post-military service that can provide that same fulfillment and the same brotherhood and camaraderie that you miss. Happy Veterans Day, y'all.
I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
Inflation-wary consumers may finally get some relief when shopping for this year's Thanksgiving meal. Overall, grocery inflation has eased during the past year, and some centerpieces of the Thanksgiving table will be slightly less expensive. Karen Kafa is in Washington with the details.
Some Thanksgiving favorites are up, others are down, according to Wells Fargo. And a survey by turkey producer Butterball found that nearly every consumer expects to feel the pinch of inflation as they plan their Thanksgiving gathering.
Thanksgiving shoppers will face ups and downs in prices this year, starting with the meal's centerpiece, the turkey. After a few years of price fluctuations, Wells Fargo says fresh turkey prices are largely unchanged this year compared to last, with name brand turkey seeing a 2% decline in price from 2023. Michael Swanson, chief agricultural economist for Wells Fargo, says conditions have improved for turkey farmers as the impact of avian flu has eased.
They got through it mostly, but
The good news is feed prices are way down. We've had a couple of really good harvests on corn and soybean meal in this country, so they can actually feed the birds for less.
Stuffing, however, may be a more expensive sell, with name brands up 9% and store brands up 3%, with Wells Fargo citing trailing labor and transportation costs.
It's one of those things where we're still seeing a little bit of inflation mixed in there.
And cranberries saw a bigger crop this year, pushing supply up and name brand prices down.
We see about 2% more cranberries produced this year in the United States, according to the USDA. That always helps. So we're seeing brand prices down 3%.
Acknowledging consumers' post-pandemic inflation fatigue, major retailers like Aldi, Sam's Club, and Target are all offering meal deals for gatherings of 4 to 10 people. A survey from Butterball found that 98% of consumers expect inflation to impact their holiday plans, up from 79% in 2023. Still, more than half of those surveyed didn't plan to make changes to save money.
And if your family prefers pecan pie to pumpkin, you will likely pay more for that this year as well. That is because of Hurricane Helene, which affected at least 48,000 acres of pecan trees, according to the University of Georgia, part of an estimated $6.6 billion impact on Georgia's agricultural industry. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow. In the KPBS newsroom, NPR's Morning Edition is discussing President-elect Donald Trump's influence on Senate Republicans' selection of a new majority leader. And KPBS Midday Edition has a show focusing on Native American Heritage Month. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.